Am I the a-hole for telling my sister not to come to my wedding anymore and that I don't want her there? Last week was my wedding day, and I told my sister not to come the day of the wedding. I'm 29 female, my sister is 21, and she's bipolar. She has never taken accountability for anything in her life. She's messy, doesn't clean up after herself, barely showers, and is always late. She waits until the last minute to shower when we need to leave, and even then she still smells because she doesn't know how to clean herself properly. We've told her over and over to clean herself, but she just doesn't care. She has zero responsibility. She doesn't go to school, she dropped out of 3 different undergraduate programs, she doesn't work, she got fired after 1 day because she showed up completely stoned. So last week was my wedding. We were supposed to leave in 30 minutes. I still live with my parents since it's a cultural thing. I was already in my wedding dress with my makeup done when my mom came into my room and told me my little sister wasn't ready. I was already pissed. I could hear my older sister yelling at her, and I had warned her the day before and pretty much every day not to pull this on my wedding day. She did the same thing during my sister's wedding. She was still sleeping. She'd spent the night playing video games. I told her to get up, we were leaving. She mumbled that she was going to, but her eyes were still closed and she was still in bed. I know her. I lost it. I told her she was selfish and that I was sick of her pulling this crap, even on my wedding day. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this. Part 2. That I was already stressed and exhausted, and if she didn't want to come then she should just stay home. That I didn't particularly want her there anyway, but unfortunately we share blood so I felt like I had to invite her for my mother's sake. My mother knows that I don't like my sister and I also made it known to my sister multiple times. My sister told me to calm the F down, that she was getting ready, and to get out of her room. Mind you, she's still with her eyes closed, still in bed. So I told her I didn't want her there. I said I'd just tell everyone she got sick, and that I didn't want her at my wedding. My mom and older sister tried to argue with me, but I told my mom that I paid for this wedding. If she wanted to side with her good-for-nothing daughter and skip my wedding, that was her choice, but she shouldn't expect anything from me going forward. I've been helping my mom financially since she's on disability. My little sister ended up not coming and sleeping through the whole thing. I know because my mom kept calling her during the whole wedding and she answered, completely sleepy. After the wedding I texted her that I want no further contact and that she's not welcomed into my life. She tried to apologize and said she'd been feeling very depressed and that she wanted to off herself. I blocked her after telling her I want no contact and to stay away from me. Now my mom is pissed at me and says I went too far. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for putting a plastic sheet on my balcony to block cigarette smoke? My downstairs neighbor in a block of flats insists on smoking on his balcony at all hours of the day. He works from home and doesn't seem to have a life, so he's out there constantly. I tried asking him politely, but that didn't work. I bought a plastic sheet thing from Amazon which I put on the bottom of the balcony to seal the gaps as best I can, rearranging the furniture to weigh it down. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. It does reduce the smoke to a considerable degree. However, when there's rain forecast, I need to move it out of the way to allow rainwater to flow through, and then rebuild it afterwards. However, the neighbor wants me to get rid of it, because sometimes rainwater will end up on his balcony when it isn't raining. Of course, rain would flow downwards anyway, with or without the sheet. I've told him I'd be quite happy to if he didn't smoke out there, but he seems to think he's the victim here. What do people of Reddit think? This is in England for context. Bluntly, I don't particularly care if he gets a burst of water from it, as it's only rainwater that would have flowed down to him anyway. He clearly has no consideration for me, and of course the only reason this exists at all is because of him smoking. I am open to mitigating that as best I can though. My apartment gets very warm as the sun shines on that room all afternoon in the summer, so the door has to be open, and I also like to dry my clothes outside and use my balcony space for reading and enjoying the weather. Having access to a balcony was part of the reason I chose to
AITA for being upset that my wife forgot to tell me the wedding dress code. My wife was a bridesmaid in one of her close friends' weddings this weekend. She had been involved in the planning for months with dress fittings, rehearsals, group chats, and everything else. I was not involved at all. I figured if there was anything important I needed to know, she would let me know. I got dressed in what I thought was appropriate and we headed to the wedding. But as soon as we got there, I realized something was wrong. Part 2. She said I was making a big deal out of nothing because nobody cared what I was wearing and that I should just laugh it off. I told her it was not really about the tux. It was about the fact that she knew I did not and she never thought to tell me. It would have taken 5 seconds to mention it, and it would have saved me from feeling embarrassed. Now she thinks I am overreacting, but I feel like my frustration is justified. Am I the a-hole? Edit. A lot of people have asked why I didn't check the invitation or ask about the dress code. That's a fair question. I assumed my wife would have mentioned something out of the ordinary since she was part of the bridal party and knew all the details. I also didn't think much of it because every wedding I have been to before, a suit was perfectly appropriate. I take responsibility for not checking the invitation myself. My frustration isn't that I think it was entirely my wife's responsibility. It's that she knew every man was expected to wear a tux, knew I didn't know, and simply forgot to mention it. If the roles were reversed and I knew something that would have left her feeling out of place all evening, I would like to think I would have mentioned it to her. If she had mentioned it to me, I would have rented a tux without hesitation. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for not walking the dog because my GF had a migraine? I, 19 male, and my girlfriend 19 female was at my house yesterday and we were just sitting in my room watching TV. After a while she started getting a migraine. She ended up laying against me with her head on my chest and rested there, and also mentioned that it felt worse than her normal ones, and her migraine meds make her a little drowsy so she was asleep. A little later my mom texted me asking if I could come help with the dogs. We have 2 dogs, and one of them is a bigger dog that pulls pretty hard when he gets excited. Usually me or my dad takes that dog, just depending on whoever is home/not busy, but he was in the middle of cooking dinner and couldn't just leave what he was doing at the moment. My mom texted me in the family group chat asking if I could take the bigger dog while she took our other dog. I texted back saying I couldn't right now because my girlfriend had a migraine and was resting on me. My mom replied saying she could sit by herself for a little bit and that I was being ridiculous. My dad texted after saying it would only take 20 minutes and that I needed to help out, and that my girlfriend was being a baby. I told them I understood, but I didn't want to wake my girlfriend up and move her when she was finally comfortable, and that my dad could just take him after dinner, and that I'd wash the dishes in return, so that my dad didn't have to do them after cooking and could walk the dog. My dad told me I was being very immature, and I told them that I really didn't want to get up because of how she was feeling, and that I would do the dishes after I took her home. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this. Part 2. They both just texted me, okay, and ended up walking the dogs. The next day, my dad was annoyed and we argued about it. He said it was ridiculous that I wouldn't get up for 20 minutes just because my girlfriend was laying on me. Before I could even speak, my sister, 14F, added that it sounded like she was being manipulative. I said that I just wanted to stay with her since she was in pain, and that they were all being ridiculous, and that I did the dishes to make up for it. My dad said that it wasn't the point and that I skipped helping family for some whiny girl. I told him to screw off and left, and we haven't spoken since, and my mom told me that I was being incredibly rude and told me to apologize, and I feel bad for how I reacted and think I overreacted. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for saying I need a break after watching my brother and SIL kids for 10+ hours? My brother and sister-in-law asked me to fly out to help after they had a new baby. They paid for my plane ticket, which I appreciated, and I genuinely wanted to help. The problem is there was never any conversation about what help actually meant. Since I've been here, I've been watching their 2 boys from around 6:30 a.m. until about 5 p.m., sometimes later. They'll tell me they'll be done at a certain time, then that time comes and goes, and I'm still the one watching the kids. The last couple of nights, my brother has gone outside by himself to grill for a few hours while I'm left inside with both kids. My sister-in-law has also left me alone with them for hours at a time. I came here thinking I'd be helping them. Instead, I feel like I've become the default childcare. Earlier this week, I even went 2 days without showering because I felt like I couldn't step away. Today, after watching the boys since 6:30 that morning, I finally said, I need a break. I went upstairs for about an hour while they had the kids and were giving them baths. As I was coming back downstairs, I overheard my sister-in-law say, I don't understand what's taking so long. I didn't hear the whole conversation, so maybe she wasn't talking about me, but after everything that's happened this week, it definitely felt like she was. The whole trip has left me feeling like I can't just be a guest. Nobody has ever said, help yourself, when it comes to food, and I don't even know what's okay to eat. I even asked if we could stop at a store so I could buy my own coffee because they don't have drip coffee in the house. I don't mind helping. That's why I came. But I never agreed to be available all day, every day. To me, there's a huge difference between helping family and becoming unpaid childcare with no clear end to the day. Am I the a-hole for taking an hour to myself after watching their kids all day? So am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments. AITA, kid with special needs keeps bothering me. I've spoken to the mom and she won't do anything about it. So, I'm on a packaged holiday. Hotel is all you can eat. There's one family here. Oldest kid has some type of special needs, but for the past few days he keeps putting his hands down the back of his shorts, rooting around, and then starts licking his fingers. Parents are pretty much letting him do his own thing. He helps himself to the food, without tongs, and talks to everyone, tries to give people hugs and all that. I spoke to staff who said they'll speak to him and even get someone to dish his food for him if needed. He tried talking to me, and I made sure I kept my distance, and he tried hugging me, and I stepped back. I spoke to the parents and said I feel really uncomfortable with him near me and my family and apologized for it. Anyway, we've booked a trip and the family is on our coach. This kid tried sitting next to me, and I refused. The mom called me rude, and I very politely and quietly said to her that I don't want to sit next to him due to his hygiene issues. She shouted at me, and when he's disabled he can't help it, so I raised my voice and said, I don't want to sit next to someone who keeps playing with their bum and licking their fingers. I don't want crap fingers near me. And now apparently she's the victim? The mom is now telling the son to bother me, and the hotel won't do anything. So am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for wanting and impose boundaries on my neighbor? My husband, 54, my MIL, 80, and I, 55, just moved out of state 1,200 miles away. We found the perfect house, 1/2 acre, screened and patio with saltwater pool and a separate bungalow for my MIL, prior to selling our old house, but after closing on the new house, my husband had traveled to the new house to do some repairs prior to us moving in. While there, he met several of our new neighbors. One of them told my husband that the previous owner had passed away and he was heartbroken because they were good friends and very close to his family. Once we moved to the new home, the neighbor stopped in that very night with his wife to say hi and introduce themselves. We were all very tired from the drive down, so my husband told them that we were going to get settled in, but to stop by any time to hang out so we could get to know each other. The following evening, they came by again, and went on and on about how the previous owner, who had passed away, always welcomed them into her home, let them use the pool, let them, or guests of theirs, stay in the bungalow, and followed up all of these stories with pictures of them and their children in our house. I didn't think much of it other than they missed her. Since then, the husband randomly stops by unannounced at any time from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., opening the gate to our backyard and the door to our patio and just sits down and makes himself at home. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this. Part 2. At times, he'll invite his wife or kids to join him. Sometimes, we're in the pool, or are having breakfast or winding down to go to bed. One time, my MIL said she was uncomfortable because she had just gotten up, was in her pajamas and didn't have her teeth in. I mentioned it to my husband, so we started locking the door to the patio. Now, my husband and I are flying back home for my family's reunion. My MIL, who is very independent, has zero issue with staying at home for a few days by herself, but is concerned about the neighbor just stopping by while we're away. I told her to lock the gate while we're away, so he can't just walk into the yard. I told my husband this, and he seemed kind of upset, stating that since he had already told the neighbor to stop by whenever he wanted, he didn't want to be inhospitable and look like a jerk by telling him not to or by locking the gate. I went behind his back and told her to lock the gate anyway if that made her feel more comfortable. So who's TA here? My husband for not wanting to appear unneighborly, me for going behind his back about locking the gate while we're away, or our neighbor for taking advantage of my husband's open invitation? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for spending more money on my kids than my stepkids? My husband and I both have kids, teenagers, from prior marriages. We each have our own incomes, although mine is significantly higher than his. When we first got together, we merged finances and I treated all of the kids the same. I got them into sports, got their clothes, took them on vacations, etc. I genuinely tried to treat them all as my own. As they got older, the blended family parenting dynamic got a lot harder. My husband and I would agree on budgets and financial rules, and then he wouldn't follow them and or would tell the kids not to tell me about things. If I got upset after finding out, they'd all focus on my reaction instead of the fact that he'd gone behind my back. The tipping point was when my stepdaughter told me that what her dad spent on her was none of my business and that he should be able to give her money whenever he wanted to. My husband didn't back me up. After that, I suggested we separate finances and financial responsibilities for our kids. He would take the lead on parenting and financial decisions for his kids, and I'd do the same for mine. If he wanted my opinion, I'd gladly give it, but I wasn't going to keep living in a dynamic where I carried the majority of the financial responsibility without any control. We figured out a split for shared expenses based on our incomes and agreed to each be responsible for our own kids' expenses. Financially, it's great. We don't fight about money anymore and it's way less stressful for me. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this.
Am I the a-hole for talking down on my sister for being a housewife? I, 20F, am a college student, and my twin sister just finished her schooling for doing nails. She also just got engaged and has decided she's never getting a job, and is going to be a stay-at-home wife/mom. I personally think we're both way too young to be getting married, but it's her life and I didn't set anything negative to her. Now she keeps making comments about how she's better than me because she's engaged while I'm not in a relationship, and how I have to spend my life working. I will be moving to the East Coast after I graduate and working my dream job, while she gets to be a stay-at-home wife. She's always been the type of person to make rude comments for no reason, but now it's daily. Eventually I got annoyed and brought up how she can't even remember to feed/walk her dog, and would be a horrible mother. She also hates cooking/cleaning, and how I'll have my own money and live by the beach. Her fiancé refuses to move by the ocean, while she's stuck in our home state and doesn't have any money of her own. Personally, I don't think what I said is any worse than what she said, but according to her and my mom, I'm the a-hole. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for not getting my Dale coffee because she hates tea? Okay, well, I got my answer. I am going to send this to my son and tell him we need to talk ASAP. My son got back to me and told me we will talk in a bit. This feels really stupid and I need to know if I am the problem here or not. My son seems to think I am the problem. My Dale loves coffee. She is the type of person that will go get coffee every morning. It is not uncommon that if she goes out to get coffee she will pick up coffee for other people as well. The issue is she will never get me a tea or any tea lattes. As she puts it, it is leaf water that she doesn't want to waste her money on. I am asking her to get a $5 thing of tea if she is already picking up everyone $8 fancy coffees. I am asking for a tea latte or an iced tea that I literally can't make at the time. So she comes back with everyone drink but mine. It is really frustrating on trip because I will be driving most of the time. She takes everyone orders and goes in while I am either getting gas or snacks for the trip to come back without any caffeine. Then I have to go into the shop to get my drink. There have been so many times she asked in the chat if any time wants something at Starbucks. I tell her what I want and then she comes back with everyone drink but mine. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this.
Am I the a-hole for threatening to quit my best friend's bridal party if I'm not made the maid of honor? My F27 best friend, F28, is getting married. Yay! We've been best friends since 7th grade, and she was the mo in my wedding a few years back. When she got engaged, I assumed I was going to be her mo, but she told me that instead, she wants her brother, M26, to be man of honor. I was a tiny bit offended, but okay. I figured I'd get to spend less money and effort, no arguments there. Then I find out that she still expects me to do all the maid of honor duties. I'm throwing the bachelorette party, I'm helping buy or DIY decor, I'm the point person for questions and problems on the wedding day. Her excuse as to why her brother can't do any of this? He's such a young guy, I can't count on him. When I pointed out that he's older than my husband, she just brushed me off. I got mad. I told her that if I'm doing all the mo work, I want the mo title, or else I'll walk. Maybe I'm vain for wanting the title, but I do. Am I the a-hole? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for not co-signing my niece's student loans? My niece is heading to college this fall. Her parents make over $150,000 together and as a result, she doesn't qualify for federal student aid. Yesterday, they went to the bank to try for private student loans. My niece being 18 needed a co-signer. Her parents applied to do this, but they have trash credit scores and were denied by the bank. Her parents have always been very wasteful spenders. Her mom is over $100,000 in student loan debt and has deferred her student loans multiple times, most recently get to a PhD, which was completed 2 years ago. Good for her, but not good for her credit score. They are always paying bills late and will get shut-off notices for utilities. They leave TVs on when no one is home and get upset over $500 electric bills. They have a $40,000 car loan with a super high interest rate. Their house is full of brand-name clothing, sports memorabilia, expensive computer equipment and gaming systems. They have known for years that their daughter wanted college but never made a plan, never saved, never did anything. So, the loan application gets denied, and they come to my partner and I and ask us to co-sign. We make less than half of what they do, but have good credit scores because we keep our bills paid on time and don't put off paying loans. We recently took out a car loan for $20,000, which is our only debt. We discussed helping, but decided that if she were to not pay the loans, it would be too much of a financial burden for us to take on. She needs around $30,000 a year for her school of choice. We can't shoulder that burden. We offered to help with books or a dining plan, but said that we can't co-sign the loans. My niece's parents are mad at us. But I don't think that her education costs are our responsibility and that her parents should have planned and been more responsible, especially knowing that their daughter was interested in college. Am I the a-hole? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for altering my friend's rare clothes? I, 19 female, am in the Lolita fashion community. For those not in the most dresses are often made in a single size or with very limited range. Like mainstream fashion, trends cycle, and the community has seen a massive surge in the popularity of old-school, Lolita, clothes produced between the 1990s-2007 over the last few years. Because these vintage pieces are scarce and highly sought after, they are horrendously overpriced on the secondhand market. In the community, I met an 27 female. We quickly became best friends, bonding over shared interests outside of Lolita and hanging out IRL many times. Anne has been in the community for years and has an enormous dress collection with rare and undocumented pieces, and helped me create my very first cord. And fits standard Lolita sizing without needing any alterations, whereas I am just a few centimeters larger in areas where weight loss is impossible, meaning my only option to wear these clothes comfortably is through altering. A few months ago, Anne sent me a text announcing she was leaving the fashion for private reasons and selling her entire wardrobe. Knowing how much I adored her collection and understanding my financial situation as a struggling student with no steady income, she offered me a deal on a massive bundle of dresses and accessories for a fraction of their market value. She insisted it was her gift to me as her best friend. Even though I repeatedly tried to offer her a higher price, she refused every attempt, saying she wanted me to have them. The package arrived shortly after, and I was ecstatic. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this.
Am I the a-hole for telling my 12-year-old daughter she did nothing wrong by inviting another friend when the first friend didn't respond? Yesterday, I told my 12-year-old daughter I'd be happy to take her and a friend to a water park today. She had a free bring a friend pass, and she initially invited her friend A. Around 9 p.m., I told my daughter she couldn't go after all. I told my daughter that if she wanted to invite someone else, that was fine. My daughter texted friend B to see if she wanted to go. When B didn't respond after about 10 minutes, my daughter tried calling her. Still no response. About 20 minutes after the original text, she invited friend C instead. C immediately said yes, so the plans were set. At about 10:30 p.m., B finally responded saying she wanted to go. My daughter told her she was sorry, but someone else had already taken the spot. B replied, "Okay, no problem." And my daughter said she was sorry and that she hoped they could hang out soon. They also spoke by phone, and my daughter explained that the spot was already taken. This morning, B's mother called asking when she could drop B off for the water park and saying how excited B was. We explained that another friend was now going. B's mother became upset with my daughter and with us. She said that once my daughter invited B, she should have waited for B to respond before inviting anyone else. Follow for part 2, dropping right after this.
Am I the a-hole for telling my future DIL that my son probably will not like her wedding dress but she should wear what she wants anyway? My son has been dating his current girlfriend for the last 6 years. It is painfully obvious to me that she likes him much more than he likes her. I do not condone his behavior. I offered him one of my family's rings to propose with, but he refused, saying I should give it to his brother instead. My DIL is obsessed with the idea of their wedding's first look. I took significant time off work to go dress shopping with her family last week. She insisted I join her so that I can provide insight into what my son will like to see her in. Her dress choices were very revealing. I do not say this judgmentally, I love a little cleavage, but they were very low-cut tops with half her chest out, or white lace over a flesh-colored bodice, and deep plunge necklines, you know the like. I stayed neutral and gave my very positive opinion instead of what I think my son would like. Edit for the record, when I was her age I wore much more revealing clothes. I do not have a problem with her showing skin. Last weekend, the bride asked me pointedly which of her 3 choices he would be stunned to see her in. I felt guilty for misleading her and told her maybe she could go off of the dresses he bought for her over the years, that his choice would be similar to that. He picked some outfits for her which are truly hideous in my opinion. Long sleeves, granny prints, below-the-knee type dresses. Most of them are maxi dresses, a few sleeveless but nothing with a deep neckline. Well, the bride got my meaning and it was very awkward and uncomfortable. Her MOH was also a little shocked, but I don't think the others in the party got my message. She asked me again in private if he would like any of her dresses. I said she knows him best. Then she pressed and I told her he might not, but she should wear what makes her feel confident anyway. Well, she is taking all her anger towards him out on me and has not contacted me all week, even though she had a shopping appointment on Thursday and posted a story saying she said yes to her dress, a reference to the show. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments. Am I the a-hole if I don't pay 50/50ths on the house my brother is living in? My dad died recently, and my brother and I own his house now 50/50. My brother lives in it by himself and I live in another state with $2,200 rent. He expects me to pay half of the mortgage, which is roughly $800 a month for my share. I don't think that's fair while he's the only one living there. I'm already paying for my own place and would essentially also be paying $800 a month toward the place he gets to live in. If he moved out and the house was empty while we waited for it to sell, I would understand splitting the mortgage. I've also told him I'm willing to pay half of necessary repairs and expenses related to maintaining the house. I'm also going to pay my half of the mortgage for the 2 months that I was staying there while I was taking care of my dad while he was dying. Going forward though, I don't think I should have to pay half the mortgage while he has exclusive use of the house. I've texted him about it, but he has a habit of ignoring my messages. We're planning to sell the house, so this isn't supposed to be a permanent arrangement. Am I the a-hole for thinking he should cover the mortgage while he's the one living there? So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
AITA for leaving my wife at the hospital to fulfill a promise to her. So this happened years ago, but I'm still upset about it because my mother-in-law keeps bringing it up. Long story short, my wife's pregnancy was fraught with her craving things she couldn't have, and she made me promise her to the high heavens that when she gave birth immediately afterwards I would go and get her a feast of all the food she wanted and couldn't have. Long story short, the birth was very difficult and she had to do surgery. She was out for a while afterwards and I figured I should keep my promise and get her the food she asked for. However, when I returned with the food she was awake and she was upset that no one was there to greet her. I explained I was keeping my promise and she laughed it off, but when she told her mother, Mael got really mad and said I should have stayed with her and gotten the food after she woke up. So what do you think, Reddit? Does my mill have a point? Edit. So I haven't been able to read all the comments, but the general consensus here seems to be that I'm not the AH, but I probably made the wrong decision. Those of you who have been pointing out that my wife would not be able to eat the food immediately are totally right. The doctor made her wait 6 hours before she ate the food. In my defense, this was my first child and I was incredibly nerve-wracked at what happened. I was terrified and felt like I needed to do something useful and to help my wife, so I did the only thing I could think of. But yeah, I probably should have stayed with her. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my parents' and sister's Hawaii trip? Backstory: my brother approached me about surprising my mom for Christmas 2025 with a trip to Hawaii since she's always wanted to go. I agreed to pay for half her ticket and my stepdad and sister. However, during the planning of the trip we got into an altercation about the sleeping arrangements and my brother, we will call him Brian, became stressed out about accommodations. He wanted to stay in an Airbnb together. But since it wasn't working, my wife and I suggested staying at a resort so we could accommodate everyone. Brian didn't like that. It turned into an argument and he insisted we stay together, so instead we suggested he and my parents stay in a house, since that's what he wanted, and we, my family and I, and my sister wanted to stay at a resort. He refused and insisted we all stay together at a house. The whole thing blew up in my family and I basically decided we weren't going. During this time that we were not speaking, they all decided to go anyways and make plans without us. We have made up since then and now they are requesting I stick to paying my half for my parents and sister that I had offered. Since I'm no longer going, I feel that it's not fair for them to ask this of me. Am I the a-hole? Update: since people keep asking, no, this was not the only Christmas's gift she received. I had already purchased multiple gifts for her. My brother approached me on Christmas Day asking if I would help out and I told him yes. He already had lease and the whole thing planned. Things only changes when we stop talking. I love my mom and would have wanted to pay for her trip anyway, but since then she has been so petty with me also and has reduced communication and seemingly acts as if it's my fault as well. My stepdad however agrees with me and says a resort would have solved all our issue. My brother however keeps asking me to pay my half as well as my mom. I cannot bring myself to do it without resentment. I also want to add that my wife and I had a 10 years anniversary trip planned in July of 2026 that everyone knew about since 2025. The Hawaii trip was planned for September of 2026, which I expressed would be cutting it close. No one cared. I was still going to make it work. But ultimately everything happens for a reason. So, am I the a-hole? Vote Y or N in the comments.